Good afternoon. The October 28th, 2025 work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Rendell, can you speak to the board about the items on the agenda for today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have several presentations today. We're going to have a presentation from FLEET, that's the Florida Educator Health Trust, on our healthcare plan. And then we have two different presentations that Sue Han will be leading. One is on the separate day school that we've talked about that we're working on. And her second presentation will be about the sales surtax renewal. Before we do get into those presentations, I'd like to ask the board to take a short recess and go into closed session to get an update on our security inspections over the summer, over the course of the last year. You may recall at our last business meeting, Mr. Timpson gave us a presentation with the overall statistics. We want to share school-specific statistics with the board. We can't share that with the public because we can't really share where any security deficiencies are with the public. So we just share it with the board in a closed session. So if you could gavel us to a closed session, we'll go to the conference room, we'll do that, and then we'll come back for the presentations.
All right, we'll close the session, go for a short recess.
You just want to wait till
All right, welcome back. Dr. Rendell, you want to introduce the first speaker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Board, for your flexibility in doing that quick closed session. Our first presentation today is going to be by Fleet. That's the Florida Educator Health Trust. It's a partner with us in our health insurance program. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dufresne, who's then going to turn it over to the Fleet officials.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell, and thank you, Board. Today we have some members from the Fleet, which is the Florida Educators Health Trust. We joined about a month and a half ago. I've been in weekly conversations with them we're looking to change our healthcare plan for not this 2026, but 2027. So obviously that takes some planning to do. So I asked Mr. Roush and Mr. Joe Albritton to come up and kind of discuss some options with our clinic models that we may be going to. Also, there's some pharmacy information in there I'd really like for them to share with you. So I want to turn it over to them, I don't want to steal any of their thunder. So Mr. Roush, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so very much. It's great to be here with you all today. Allow me, as a former and recovering superintendent myself, to say to you all that I appreciate the work that you all do on behalf of the children and the families of Brevard County. It's great to be here with you today, and I'm fortunate to be able to be a part of this Fleet team and doing some great work in Florida school districts around that whole arena of health insurance. We understand the costs and everything that go into that and trying to provide quality programs for our employees and their families. So I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joe Albritton. He's the lead on our program management team. We also have Kramer Royal here today, who's the Chief of Staff for Avail Analytics, as well as Jim Powell, who works inside Fleet through Alliant. So I just wanted to bring you a current update of the districts that have joined Fleet. I think we've added 6 districts since you all came on board on August the 1st. We continue to canvass the state. There's a lot of interest, and districts are joining pretty much on the monthly, if not even more than one a month. And so congratulations to you all for being front runners and trailblazers in this arena. You're going to see here shortly that the work that is being done for Brevard and the other Fleet districts is going to pay off, and it's already paying off in the value of this health insurance arena. We are continuing to engage with districts large, medium, and small. Around the state, we are currently engaged in conversations with districts that are pre-participation agreement phase, about 25 additional districts around the state, with new calls coming in weekly. So I just wanted to let you all know, from my vantage point, serving as the Executive Director of Fleet under the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, under FADS, that our team is here. We're a phone call away, happy to assist and answer any questions at any time. So again, thank you for having us today. Mr. Albritton.
Thank you. Wanted to go through, just give a couple of quick updates and things we've already accomplished within Fleet, and then open up dialogue. If you had any questions, I'm going to try to go through this pretty quick so we can have some open dialogue if you have questions. When you first came into Fleet, there are certain things we had to build out, if you think of it in terms of an infrastructure or an architecture that the program sits on top of. One is the data warehouse. Fleet has its own wholly owned and operated data warehouse with independent actuary and analysts bolted onto it. So your data that you get, the responses and everything that you understand on how your program's operating is coming from pristine data. It's not coming from the lens of an agent or the carrier. It is unique, pristine data for Brevard. So we have completed the transition in building your data warehouse within the Fleet program. The other thing that we wanted to do early on is capture all of your expenses and all of your operational costs to determine what the true cost of your health program is. When we did that, we drove it through a process that we call parity. We take all of your expenses and compare it to your income, your budgeted amount, and make sure that you are in a situation where you're in fact paying for your own program. You're not running at a loss. So we completed the parity analysis. You're actually in great shape for that, just so you know, just to make you feel happy. Another thing that we did early on is we got into your PBM, which is your pharmacy contract. We got copies of all your contracts as part of the due diligence, and we went through the pharmacy contract Alliant led the charge on that. And we're going to go into a little more detail about what we found and the success that we were able to generate from that in just a second. The agent and contract effectuation selection process is currently ongoing. We're going to touch on that in a future slide as well, where we are specifically in that process. And then I know you guys have a lot of interest in the clinical analysis, where we are with clinical services. Some things you're going to be that we're looking forward to in 2026 as well is we're going to look at and analyze your benefit administration system, your software system, and look for opportunities to improve and enhance what you have going on there. Running a voluntary benefit procurement. We're going to look at all of that, and try to determine the most cost-effective and best program for your employees there. And then we're going to look at the health and wellness program that Brevard currently operates. As you can imagine, the health and wellness program is directly tied to your clinical model, and that's directly tied to your parity model. So they all kind of dovetail together. So we're running all of those things simultaneously through the end of 2026. All of that steering toward a enhanced program that we're going to be rolling out in 2027. The PBM contract, I'm going to ask Jim Powell, who's the lead with Alliant for Fleet, to come up and discuss that.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon. I'm Jim Powell with Alliant out of Tampa. We are Fleet's broker, and we're going to be talking about the pharmacy benefit management contract with Cigna. When we came in, there was a renewal presented for the pharmacy terms, which would be a 3-year term starting January 1/26. And we went through all the data. We went through the contract with our pharmacy team. We have about 45 folks on our pharmacy team, pharmacists and analysts, that dove into the contract and also the projected cost for January 26 and what Cigna was presenting. We then shared with Cigna all the deficiencies their financials had versus the market. You know, the pharmacy market improves every year. We go through an annual market check for all the Fleet schools. We look, even though these are 3-year contracts, we look at them every year and we challenge the current vendor to improve. So we looked at things like discounts off average wholesale price, the dispensing fees, and the rebate guarantees. And we presented Cigna with a challenge. We said, here, we need you to be at this level where the market is. We gave them a few weeks and they came back, and believe it or not, they came through with almost everything that we asked for. So the result of that for planned savings projected next year is $1.1 million in less claims expense than we projected with the contract had we not had a conversation with Cigna. If we would have just let it ride, like some people do, unfortunately, sometimes, the expense would have been 1.1 million higher. And for the year after that and the year after that. So it's really about a $3.3 million planned savings over the 3 years that we were able to achieve. So we're very happy about that. There's no change in benefits for the employees, no change in formulary. It's a great win-win, so we wanted to report on that. Our next project we'll be working on will be the stop loss, and we'll be in touch with you all on that. And again, we do this every year, so this is this year. We're gonna hit them again next year.
Good, good, thank you.
Thank you.
We like that explanation.
Great success story I thought you might enjoy hearing there.
We do.
To pay a little special privilege to the Alliant team, the savings they generate every year for the PBM it amazes me every year. It's consistent. With other districts that have come into Fleet, that they took a harder repricing position than the group was before, we're seeing 10, 12% savings. So the fact that they hit a 6.2% first year on renegotiating existing contract is a really strong position. The next thing I wanted to discuss is the contract effectuation selection. We're in the middle of going through that right now for you guys. Your current agent of record is locked in. That contract's going to expire January 31st. So we have to have a new contract effectuator in place for you February 1st. If you think of that in terms of the people that handle your voluntary benefits and your open enrollments and all those types of things. The process that we went through, pretty simple. We sat down with your staff, the administrative staff, and developed a scope of services that's specific to your district. We do this with every school district. There's not a blanket template that we use. Every district has a different administrative structure than the others. So we sit down, we don't want you paying for services that you're not needing or receiving. So we go through the master list and check what you need, what you don't need. If you don't need it, it is not included in the selection process. So no one's bidding on it, you're not paying for it, you're not receiving it. We issued the invitation, and there were 16 different agents that responded, that they received the invitation. Of those 16, 11 came back and after they had seen the process at hand, 11 of them wanted to participate in the selection. That's a pretty good return of interest. Having 11 agents that want to fight for your business is a good position to be in. 2 of them, during the question and answer section of the process, withdrew. That's their choice. We're going to have the final responses due on October 31st. And then through the process, utilizing your administration as a sounding board, going through that process, the selected agent will be notified that they've been awarded December the 15th. That new contract will start February 1st. Once again, just like with the PBM, this contract with your effectuator will have performance guarantees and clawbacks embedded into the contract, and Fleet will audit for that every single year. We've successfully been able to claw revenue back into districts in the past when the agent didn't comply with the terms of the contract and performance guarantees. We're going to be doing that behind the scenes for you each and every year. And then
I have a question on that last slide, if I could, or we can wait till the end. I wrote it down if we need. If
we can do it now. That's fine.
Okay. In this process, because I'm trying to wrap my head around where Fleet fits into what we have done before. So are we still utilizing our own procurement process through this, and you guys are just kind of guiding us through, or are you taking care of this part? That's why I'm like the responses are due by Friday. We're going to have an agent awarded by December 15th. So where does our procurement team fall in this?
Fleet is handling this process for you.
Okay.
Under 112.08, there's 3 ways you can have an health insurance program. Fully insured, which you are not. Independently self-insured, and that's what you're thinking of when you're thinking of you having to run your procurements.
Right.
And then the third option is to join a risk management trust. So by joining Fleet, those obligation, all that workload goes on to the staff of the Fleet group now. We don't want to do it blindly, of course, so we do sit down with your staff, your administrative staff, to determine what scope of services you need. And then we take all of that and all that responsibility and efforts put on Fleet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And just on the back end of that, if you look at it, 11 responded that they were going to file in. When we did this originally, because the industry knows the way that things work, there were only a handful that actually came. So that the opportunity that they have expanded how many people actually come in is huge, because we'll get true competition. Thank you.
That's part of the power of using the procurement process through Fleet. These brokers and agents that are sitting out there realize if we want to gain access to the school district community, we have to participate through Fleet. That's why we get such a high turnout. It's the same thing in our stop loss, when we market the stop loss. I think currently we have 15 different stop loss vendors that compete for the business every time we run one. We have all 4 of the major health carriers participating. I don't know how many PBMs we have. All of the big ones, they all fight through the Fleet model, because that's how you access school districts for members that are in Fleet. So we get a good turnout because of that structure. The clinical services. This is pretty exciting. This is something that we've been working on for several months. A lot of school districts, including Brevard, showed a lot of interest in enhancing, building out the way they analyze, select, and manage their clinic services for their employees. It was kind of, for lack of a better phrase, it was kind of the Wild West in the clinical world. So we decided that through Fleet, we were going to take a much more logical, structured approach to how we look at and process clinics on behalf of the member districts. So the first step in the process is we developed a vetting process for all of the clinics that may want to participate with school districts in Florida. If you take all of the school district employees in the state and add them all together, there's 360,000 employees in the state of Florida. That's a really big pool of employees that you would think every clinic would want to be part of that. But for some strange reason, in the state of Florida, there was really only 3 main players. I found that interesting. Better word is unacceptable. So we decided that we were going to cast a net from Seattle to Key West. So we went out and we started looking at any large, capable clinic provider that would show interest in coming into the state of Florida to access an employee pool that's that large. We started the vetting process. We've already vetted 19 clinic providers across the country that have passed the vetting. The vetting would be something along the lines of, are you licensed to be a clinic? And I know how ridiculous that sounds, but you'd be surprised the number that are not. You get into a lot of scenarios as far as what's the scope of services, what's the smallest group size you look at. I mean, you can imagine the complexity in that. Through that process, there were 2 that were not approved, that didn't pass the vetting. We have 9 more in the order to go through the vetting. We're pretty excited. We're expecting that we probably won't have as high a success rate in the remaining 9. We're hoping to wind up with 25 clinic candidates for school districts across the state. Some are going to be more specifically targeting, say, maybe a very small area, rural area. Some are going to be more a direct care model for a larger district like you guys are. So once we go through that process and we identify that stable of clinics, we're going to engage a clinical management team at the fleet level that specializes in the analysis and ongoing management of clinics. They have doctors on staff. They know how to calculate the ROI, drive transparency, force all of the data into your warehouse. They're able to separate out what's going on with your pharmaceuticals inside your clinics to maximize your savings. One of the things that's really interesting and exciting in the way we're approaching this is forcing performance guarantees back on the clinics. We had an interesting dynamic in one of your fellow member districts, where one of the very first things we did when we were hired was to sit through a clinical finalist presentation. And one of the clinics came in and they made a presentation and they were talking about performance guarantees. Well, what they were really talking about was a not to exceed. And not to split hairs, but there's a big difference between saying I'm not going to exceed this maximum amount of money that you're already paying, compared to if I save you money, I've done well, and if I don't, I have a guarantee to give back to you. Those are 2 very different things. So when we build these contracts out, we embed them with performance guarantees, and all the clinics that we're talking to, that we're vetting, is aware that that approach is coming. None of them seem to be upset with it at this point. We will see when we get into the contracting stage how they actually respond. But that clinical management team, best in the world, we vetted a lot of different candidates. They were the clear choice on, I think it's November the 5th. November the 5th, their contract with Fleet is going in front of the Fleet Executive Board for approval. And then once that team gets engaged, what we will do then is look at your existing clinic, the one you currently have, and their scope of services, And we'll look and see how does that line up with and compare with your wellness program. Because your clinic model really needs to dovetail into your wellness program, and that, of course, drives parity and drives your costs down. You should not and cannot run them in isolation. It's all one cohesive strategy in one program. So once all that gets in place, we'll look at the contract, develop the scope of services tied specifically to your wellness program, and then run a selection process similar to what we're doing with your contract effectuator. Once again, you'll be engaged in the process. None of this is done, away from you. You're fully aware of what's going on. And then we will enforce and drive into the contract performance guarantees and an ROI analysis. So you will know every single year what the clinic's actually doing for you or not. And if they're not performing, guess what we'll do? We'll go through the vetting, we'll go through the process all over again until we fix it, until we get it just like you need. And then we'll launch the comprehensive clinical solution that ties into your program. So that is where we are in the clinical, and all of that should happen in 2026. I just realized I didn't put a timeline on this. We're expecting January 1st to be the kickoff date for the clinical management team to be tied in, and their active process. Polk Schools is going through the exact same process you are at the same time. So it's going to be really interesting and exciting to see how that turns out. That's where we are. That's the update on how much success you're having and what's coming around the bend. Any questions?
Got one on the clinical topic. One thing that we had discussed when we were thinking about clinics, we've discussed a few times before, is because we are such a long, skinny county and very separated areas, that we might have the opportunity to build more clinics off the bat if we share with other municipalities, the county, because then we can get a larger client base, and maybe instead of opening 3 or 4 clinics at the beginning, we could start off with 4 or 5 and have better service for our beachside communities and our, Palm Bay communities and things like that. Would us being a part of Fleet and you guys managing this process for us, would that preclude us from being able to do that and having shared facility agreement type things with?
No, ma'am, it actually encourages that.
Okay.
Polk School, same scenario. They're not long and skinny, but they're really big. Polk is a huge county. I've actually got a meeting set with Polk Schools, their Board of County Commissioners, and I think City of Lakeland or maybe the City of Winter Haven, I can't remember which one, to talk about developing a strategy on joint clinic solutions. It just makes the most sense. Regardless of the size of or shape of the county, it just makes more sense. The more people you can put through the clinic, the more services you can offer. And the more money you can save, and the better you can treat people quickly. So that is definitely part of the process. That was explained to all the vetted clinics, and that was also explained to the management team, the clinical management team, that is something that we're going to expect to see.
And
Awesome.
on the
Thank
tail end of that, Ms. Campbell, you gave me the opportunity when we had the off-site to go out and gather the support to create that with the county, the cities, and all that stuff. Ryan and I last week sat down and said, okay, we're at that point now that Fleet's under control, so we're going to host a meeting with all of those cities and counties. Ryan's going to run it, and we're going to bring them in to see if they want to join us. That will double our footprint, more than likely. Just having the county will double our footprint. So instead of having 3, we could have 6. And if you start adding Palm Bays and some of the others, we can actually get to a place where our people are served. So yeah, definitely as part of it, and Ryan's been doing a great job on that.
I want to speak to the clinical services model as well. One of the major concerns that I hear from a lot of our staff is that they can't be seen on time. They cannot be seen by a doctor. There's just a few things that are common complaints that we hear. So when we look at our clinical services analysis, I'm excited about the possibility of us, partnering with a different organization or maybe the same organization if they can deliver the things that we need. But are we going to ensure, is there anything built in there that we are going to ensure that a doctor is present at the clinical, at the clinic, I guess? Is there anything that says you guys are going to have doctors on site, or are they going to allow for like a nurse practitioner, or what is that going to look like for?
Yeah, so there are 22 different facets. What I saw in the initial analysis, there are 22 different care delivery facets.
Okay.
When we're developing the scope of services, obviously, the inside that scope's going to dictate, should it be a doctor, should it be a nurse practitioner, you know, those kind of things. So we're going to dig into that, and if it makes the most sense and your request is that there are MDs on site, then that will be put in the selection process.
Okay, all right, and I just wasn't sure if, are we going to be able to weigh in on that conversation on what we're looking for to have in our clinics so that better
Absolutely.
serves our employees? Okay, all right, wonderful. Well, I'm excited about this. So realistically, you're saying January 1st for this team to launch off. So the idea of bringing new clinics on takes some time because you have to build them to some degree, right? It's not as though they're already established
Right.
most of the time. So what would that look like for our employees if we were going to switch into a different model than what we currently have? What's a realistic timeframe on when they could expect to see that?
Well, we've heard from different clinic providers, we've heard 90 days, we've heard 120 days, we've heard 6 months. You know, it depends on the services that you settle on that you need, because that's going to drive the type of facility, right? And then the availability of buildings, do they need to bring a site? Do they, you know, all those kind of things play in.
Right.
Suffice it to say, we're going to do it as quickly as possible without making mistakes.
Okay, I like that.
Is the easiest way I know to describe it, because a lot of times I'm aware of another district that went too fast. They got in a hurry and made some big mistakes, and it took us a minute to fix it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to that for all of our employees, so thank you.
I think on the back end of that, what we had given direction to Dr. Rendell was to create a healthcare plan in 2027 that is heavy on screenings for healthcare and identifying some of those wellness techniques and stuff like that. Their goal should be, and I may be speaking ahead, that by the time that opens in 2027 or closer to the end of that, whatever clinical services we have and we've given that direction would be available for that, if that makes sense. Is that the direction that you guys
Yeah,
think?
that is correct. The clinic, that's the reason we're going to first sit down and work through your wellness program with you, because you have to build the clinic to support that. You don't build the wellness program and tell all of your employees you need to do ABC and then not have a way to facilitate the care delivery to accomplish that.
Right.
So we're not going to get the cart before the horse in that scenario. We'll take care of the building out the wellness strategy that you guys want, and then build the clinic solution to work with that. We don't see any reason why that can't be done in the calendar year of '26.
I like that.
Fantastic.
When I talk to staff about going to those, we have to start screening people ahead of 2027 to put them into some of these cases too. So there's going to be some other, near the end, we're not going to be just completely complacent through 2026. Near the end, we will be testing people, so.
Great. Anything? Mr. Thomas, anything?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to comment and say thank you for your measured approach and making sure that you're getting it right, and I know that's going to be appreciated long-term by the employees.
I'd rather ask for more time than get yelled at for doing it wrong
There you go.
every single time.
Well, we thank you and thank you for all the hard work. We look forward to the results. Appreciate it. Dr. Rendell, do you want to add anything?
I will just say that they have been quickly demonstrated that they are a great partner. Like, they're alongside us in this healthcare journey, and as indicated today, they've already basically saved us $1.1 million.
Yeah.
It's just huge.
I joked when you guys came originally, I said, I bet you insurance companies don't like to see you guys.
We're not their favorite people.
You're probably not their favorite people, but you're doing it for the greater good of all, so thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rendell, you want to introduce our next one?
Yes, we're going to shift over to some presentations by Sue Han. The first one's going to be on the separate day school project that we've been talking about for quite some time. She just wants to give us an update on where we're at. We asked her to look at an alternative, and she's going to share her research into that. Sue, is that accurate?
Among other things, yes.
Okay, among other things.
Okay, so I wanted to give you both an update on the separate day school project itself and project financing. So I've presented on these two topics separately in the past, and they are interrelated in terms of going forward. So you're going to see bits and pieces of both topics as I go through the presentation today. So relative to the separate day school, just to kind of reset where we are and where we've been, we kind of started down this path late in 2023, looking at alternatives to Gardendale for the separate day school function. And then as we went into 24, we started work on looking at locating the separate day school on the campus of Kennedy Middle School, basically to the east of the school. That seemed to fit really well, and it would integrate well with the campus. So we went forward with the design RFQ. We've gone forward with design. We've done a construction RFQ. We've gone through pre-construction services, and they are currently, and basically they've finished developing the guaranteed maximum price. We also went through with the board the potential for financing, looking at a line of credit, and we estimated that we were going to need some significant line of credit to finance this project, and we're moving forward. Then the decision was made to close the ALCs, which opened up potentially an opportunity to look at using Gardendale, the full scope of Gardendale versus just half of Gardendale as the separate day school. And so we just put a pause on the project to kind of go take a quick look at that and see the feasibility of renovating Gardendale to customize it for the separate day school function, and looking at impacts to schedule and serving students and those types of considerations. So we kind of took a pause, went back and met with the student services team, with our folks, and really took a serious look at what if we were to renovate Gardendale as it stands. Also have had an opportunity to look at an alternative financing strategy that I'm going to cover with you today. So those two opportunities kind of came together in time, and we were able to take a close look at both pieces. So the next two slides, if you need to go back in history as to all of the actions relating to the separate day school, these are all compiled in this slide and the next slide. If you need that information and want to refer back to anything that we've done previously on these issues. But we are today basically ready to start construction. So if we proceed, we will have a GMP to you at your November 18th meeting for the construction of the new building at Kennedy. So that's the Gardendale piece. I'm going to revisit the project funding piece that I originally presented to you in August. And so these are slides. The next 3 or 4 slides are basically the same slides that I presented in August with some updates in red. And so we went through the separate day school process as shown on the slides. Turns out we did not need an early works GMP, so we did the construction manager selection and then administratively approved we administratively approved pre-construction, did not need an early works GMP. We had planned to come to the school board in October with the GMP, and we deferred that to give us an opportunity to look at the Gardendale option. The contractor is estimating about a 14-month construction schedule. That's still valid. The estimated costs are more or less about the same. The GMP is coming in right at about 20 million, but we also have to fund FF&E and technology and things like that. So I'm still looking at about 22 million for the whole job. The short-term financing needs that we presented in August were 10 to 12 million. And based on some new, some updates, I think we may be able to fund the project with cash we will or do have on hand. So all of the pieces regarding borrowing, I have an update about that I will be sharing with you. But it also relates to the full scope of the other projects in South Brevard. These all sort of came together as a package. So with Westside Elementary, we are under construction with the classroom addition, and we did not and we do not need financing for that project. So that's moving ahead basically as planned. The Bayside Classroom Addition, that project is also moving ahead as planned. It was one of the 3 that we had suggested would need some type of line of credit or financing. So it was Separate Day School, Bayside, and Sunrise. So we've been proceeding with that. We're just about ready to bring the GMP proposal to the board, either in December or January. That is basically tracking along the same cost lines as we had presented back in August. So that's more or less ready to proceed. The Sunrise project, we looked at the conversion to K-8, and I think that is still on the table as a viable option. But we went down the path of, does it fit? And so we've been looking at, does it fit? And it fits, but it's a pretty tight fit on the site. And we need some additional middle school capacity, additional elementary capacity. So the project scope has gotten bigger as we've started to assess what it is we actually need to do there to support students in that area of the county. Sort of concurrently with all of this, we've been working with the city of Palm Bay and the development community in that area. And there's quite a bit of development activity. And as part of development planning, there's been some talk of a school site being donated to the school district or being donated for a charter school. There's talk of all of those things. So we thought, well, perhaps if we are going to be the recipient of a site, maybe the better course of action would be to look at building a new K-8 rather than trying to squeeze a K-8 into a site. So we kind of paused on the Sunrise project to give that opportunity a chance to kind of play out and see where that goes. There's also charters in that area that are interested in coming into the district, so there's a lot of uncertainty as to what might happen relative to providing school capacity in that area. But it's a pretty robust development platform coming up, kind of on par with like a Viera type of development. It's not one developer though, it's several developers over a long period of time. So it's a little different scenario, but the order of magnitude is kind of in that order of magnitude where we have to be thinking about how are we providing both school infrastructure and other typical infrastructure to support development activity. So it's not just the schools, it's roads and fire, police, and all of those things that we're all kind of talking about and wrestling with how that gets integrated into development agreements or mitigation agreements or both. So those are some things that you will probably be seeing over the next 6 months to a year as all that plays out. So we thought at the time, if everything was full speed ahead, that we would be thinking about starting construction in the spring. But we don't think we're going to be, well, I know we won't be ready. So I think the spring is going to be more of the decision time for what we do in Sunrise in that area rather than starting construction. So we're kind of pausing on the Sunrise piece, which frees up a little bit of financial capacity. So that's the short summary of the long story. So bottom line is we had some opportunities that sort of came together in time. One was the closure of the ALCs, which caused us to think maybe we should relook at Gardendale. We had the Impact Fee Advisory Committee meeting on October 20th. And we have both a south and a north impact fee district. The district line is at Barnes Boulevard. Kennedy is just to the north of that. So Kennedy campus, where we would put the separate day school, is in the north impact fee district. Typically, the north district collects about a third-ish of the impact fees in the south. But the student distribution at the separate day school is about half and half, more closely to about 60% south, 40% north. So we, as staff, kind of looked at, well, could we use some South area impact fees to support the students, and by extension, the student stations at the separate day school on the site of Kennedy's campus. So the impact fee ordinance does allow for that if you're providing district-wide services. We've spent some time with the county team across the street, talked to the county attorney. I think we're all in agreement, so we wanted to make sure we vetted that option properly. We did talk to the Impact Fee Committee on October 20th and asked them about allocating new impact fees to the separate day school from the South District as well as the North, which we've been traditionally doing, and then potentially going back and reallocating some previous South area impact fees to the the separate day school project. And so ultimately, the committee's recommended approval of that. You have that on your agenda tonight for the impact fee allocations. The recommendations were not unanimous, but they were approved. And then coincidentally, or concurrently, Sunrise is not an immediate funding need. So that kind of opened up a different look at how we do project financing. So I'm going to jump back to the renovation versus new build and just talk through where we were with that. So concurrently in time, we're also looking at building the upcoming sales surtax renewal plan. So we had good assessment data. Our folks have been in our schools looking at what's going on with the building systems. We met with the team from Gardendale and wanted to make sure that we were providing appropriate infrastructure and assets for serving the students of the separate day school. And so, when you start to look at all the things that you need to do in a 60-year-old building, coupled with all of the things that we should do to support the separate day school, the cost starts to really creep up. And, this is to some extent a back-of-the-napkin type of estimate. So I'm not going to, assert that it will be 15 million exactly. It might be 12, it might be 18. But we can spend a lot of money at Gardendale bringing that up to the standard that we would provide for that function at the separate day school on the Kennedy campus. Further complicating the renovation idea is that we cannot use impact fees if we're not providing new student stations. So the impact fee source of funding that we're using for the new build, we cannot use to renovate. So that causes us to think, well, if we would need either capital money or financing, or we would do this work as a renovation project over a much longer period of time. And in my opinion, that doesn't really work for serving the students of the separate day school. So all those things together led us to the point where we felt like it was probably a good decision to look more closely at the new build. So we also looked at, just for round numbers, if we looked at the property appraiser's website, the market value of Gardendale properties listed at 6.6 million, have not had it appraised, but it gives you a rough order of magnitude on the value. As I mentioned, we have the construction manager ready to start. They have talked to all their subs, and when we started down the path of, hey, we're going to pause this, please let us know the impacts. They have held onto their subs, they've held their pricing, and they've held their schedule. So they can still meet opening day, January of 2027. I do have a letter from the contractor that basically says if we are moving any farther out on the construction, we can expect some cost escalation, and their subs may choose other work because they basically have them kind of
locked up,
sort of under contract where they've committed to us. But if we're uncertain about moving forward, their subs are probably going to start looking for other work. And so I just wanted to disclose that information that was provided to us about the impacts of waiting. So, and then finally, as I said, I think we can fund the construction of the separate day school without financing.
Wow.
So our recommendation relative to the separate day school is to proceed. I think it really provides the best facility for the students and the staff. It's not exactly cost neutral, but it's approaching cost neutral. We get a new facility versus a 60-year-old facility, and that's a big one for me. We've been dealing with a lot of 60-year-old facilities over the past couple of days, and it's not been as delightful as you might think. And I think another piece is that with the new build, we have 14 months of construction, and we have a brand new facility. We open the door and get started. With the renovation and given the financing structure we would need for the renovations, this is a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's going to take a while to get through all of that stuff because we have an occupied campus. We can't just go in, fix it all, open the doors like we would with a new build. So that's our recommendation after looking at that. And then I also wanted to give you the funding strategy side updated. So on separate day school, as I mentioned, we have the opportunity to utilize the South Area educational impact fees. The student distribution is about 60%. The cost distribution is going to be about 50%. So we want to stay under that threshold. So we're recommending the new impact fees in this quarter go to, the separate day school function as well as 2 previous quarters. And this will give us enough cash coupled with the new allocation of the North Area impact fees to fund the project. So I feel like this is a good solution for a priority project to allow us to get going and not have to engage in financing. However, let me show you what the impacts are. So on the Bayside project, as I said, we anticipate a December, January board meeting, 20-ish million. We have $12 million in cash right now. We will take 4 of that in the reallocation. And so we're going to end up in a starting point today, if all of this goes as planned, with about $8 million. My suggestion is going to be probably a $10 to $15 million line of credit. However, our impact fee revenues in the South have been pretty reliably 3.5 to 4 point something million every quarter. And so I think my opinion is if the impact fee revenues continue as predicted, the impact fee revenues will basically occur concurrently with the construction draws. So we'll need the line. We may not have to draw on the line, similar to the process that we used for the middle school project. So it'll be very similar to that. In talking with our financial advisor, he is clear that it's likely that we'll be charged a little bit more for a line of credit, that we're not going to have big draws because, it's just, they've had experience with us. We got a great, so they know that we are trying not to use our line of credit, and we're going to be charged for the privilege of having the line of credit a little bit more than what we would have been charged under the previous program. But it's still a competitive process, and he believes that there are banks out there that will be participating in that competitive process. So we'll look at that when those come in. And then, I think as we move along and we acquire North Area impact fees, there's always an opportunity to, move things around in the future and reallocate through our normal process with the Impact Fee Benefit District Advisory Committees. Sunrise, as I said, we're still kind of trying to decide where we go with that, and some of this is developer-driven and development-driven, so we're going to give that process a little bit of time to play out, and if it's not playing out, then we're going to probably come back to you and recommend proceeding. But this is the area we will definitely need financing and a line of credit for whatever we do. But one of the good things about where we are today is we will only be encumbering Bayside with the line of credit, and we will be paying that off relatively quickly. So this will be its own financing project, and we can make decisions on that as a standalone project at the time that we're ready to make those decisions. So next steps, we will be proceeding with the GMP for the new separate day school on November 18th is our plan. And we'll be issuing the invitation to negotiate for just the Bayside project for financing as a line of credit. So that's kind of our plan, and sorry about the long explanation and jumping back between separate day school and project financing, but I really needed to give you sort of the big picture of the side issues that are associated with this decision. So I'd be happy to take questions.
All this work, and I know it was cross-functional because I know student services was in on it, finance was in on it, so many different areas. I appreciate the due diligence of the staff in looking at the option of staying at the current location. I do appreciate that, and the opportunity that we could have been out there for cost savings. I will tell you honestly from my heart, this is the first public meeting we'll be able to say that I have been strongly opposed to that option from the time that I heard of it, because I was going back as a board, the conversations that we had of trying to provide, really for the first time that we've been able, the best facilities and opportunities for the students who have the highest levels of need. And we did the best we could, and staff did amazing work and have continued to improve the facilities at Gardendale from the time it got dumped in our lap, 6 weeks before the start of the school year. I think we did it the first time. Kudos to all the staff. But for me, I thought of a couple things. One, we wanted to provide better opportunities and opportunities for more students, which I know we could have done either way, because there are so many students that we might not be serving because that facility is limited in capacity. But the other thing was really what is most important in all real estate, location. And I just can't get past that the only thing that's close to Merritt Island, sorry, Mr. Trent, is Merritt Island. And so I had already done the mapping from several locations. I'm like, just from my house, it's a 14-minute drive. From Bayside High School, which is southeast, from Heritage High School, which is southwest, 14, 15, 16-minute drive distance for those. Whereas I did really quickly, from Mims and from Titusville, from a north end, it's only a 5-minute difference from them, 2 minutes from Mims, from one location to the other. But from the south end, where we are drawing, quite a few students, one of the problems that when we had this conversation, I remember in the room over there, was how long the kids were on the bus having to ride, and they're having to be strapped in. We're providing them iPads so that they can be entertained. I mean, that part of the process was just unacceptable for this board. And so while I so appreciate everybody's desire to try to save money and maybe make it easier, I am glad that we got back around to the new build option, because yes, it's going to save us money. Yes, it'll be financed easier, but I truly believe we'll be serving students better, more students as well with this new facility. I mean, that's why we went over to Orange County and did the tour of the Magnolia School, and the other one I can't remember the name of. This is the best option, I believe. So I'm glad we're getting around here. So you have my wholehearted support for the plan to do the financing this way that you have presented, and for us to continue on with the construction at the Kennedy site from me. Thank you.
All right. I have a feeling that's going to be the theme, but John?
I just wanted to support the fact of moving forward with the new school. I think that's wise. As far as, I can tell you guys have worked extremely hard to minimize the amount of money that we might need to finance in the future. Trying to keep that down, and that's appreciated. And as far as the project at Sunrise, I know that there's a lot of moving parts with that, and I think it's very wise to just, as you're doing, let things rest and see how they shake out over the coming months. So I just want to say thank you for everything you're doing.
Ms. Wright?
All right, I will be the one to admit that at first I really loved the Gardendale option, because I thought, well, if we can renovate something, that makes so much more sense. But I hear you. A 60-year-old facility comes with a whole plethora of problems in its own, right? And then the location of the property is troublesome, and then the ability to be able to sell the property kind of gets us back to a place where I feel like this is a better solution. So I don't talk very much about my previous career prior to being here, but I worked with developmental disabilities, owning a home health agency for the better part of a decade, and just really immediately recognized when I got on this board, like this, we are not serving these students, and these students have the highest needs, and they are truly our most vulnerable kiddos. And so really wanted to see what can we do to make a difference in these kids' lives, and I'm just so stinking excited that this school's going to get off the ground, and there's going to be something there for them that they're going to be able to really be proud of and love to attend. I know that there was not a unanimous vote on those impact fees, and what I would just say about that is that I appreciate the support that we got, because this truly does serve the entire county. It's not something that's just serving the north end. Every student in Brevard County that would qualify to be in this school will have access to this school. So it's going to be something that's just truly amazing. So I am very, very much in favor of saying yay to 2 schools that this board will have built. Well, John, you weren't here, but the middle school, debt-free. So that'll be another huge, huge success for us in Brevard County. So thank you.
So proud that we're going to put this together.
It is such a proud facility. Like, we should all be honored that this is something that we're putting in, that's all. And I'm so glad that you're a part of it, that's all. I know that funding option, the way you did that Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme looking thing that actually made sense, and
Not
looked
a
really
Ponzi
good.
scheme.
No, but it's not at all. But the way that she came up with making sure that we do not take out debt at the maximum opportunity, I just can't tell you how it's really a nice thing to work with you, Sue. That's all. Thank you.
Well, Sue, I will not use that same verbiage. However, I did enjoy the opportunity when I heard that you were going to be looking at the possible renovations of it. I thought it was great. It made sense. Let's see if it makes sense. And explore all our opportunities, because, the public's going to want us to do that. And I'm glad we were able to do that. And it absolutely did not make sense to renovate. So I appreciate that. Mrs. Campbell, those times differences, depending on the time of the day, those would be tripled. There is no easy way to get through Merritt Island at certain times of the day. So it just makes complete sense. And I'm excited as these guys too. And as far as your detail, you can have complete appreciation for seeing all those numbers up there. When you're done with it, it makes complete sense to the ones that could never replicate that. And that's us. We could never do and put all that on there and for it to make sense. It makes sense to us after you've done all the work in your teams, but we're excited to be able to be a part of this again, and being fiscally responsible. So we're excited about this. So thank you so much for all your effort. Dr. Rendell.
Yeah, I just have a couple of thank yous. One, I want to thank the board for committing to take care of some of our most vulnerable students. I mean, it's been a couple years that we've been on this journey, but we've never wavered in trying to provide a top-notch facility for these students, and they haven't had that for a long time, and they deserve that. So I want to thank the board for that commitment. Definitely want to thank Sue and her team for pausing and taking a look at another possibility, maybe to save money, that kind of thing, an exhaustive look at it to see that actually, if there were any cost savings, it wouldn't be worth it, because we're not going to get a totally new facility that these kids need in the right location. So, and then the third thank you is to the contractors that hung with us as we explored this other possibility. So thank you to them for sticking with us, and we'll get moving as soon as we can. Thank you.
Great. All right.
Thank you, and I owe a lot of thanks to our student services team and my team. This really was a collaborative effort, and we had everybody in the room working together, and we looked at this seriously, and how could we make it work and what it would take, and it was a true team effort. So I appreciate the great team we have at BPS. So thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Mr. Chair, I didn't know if we wanted to take a quick break before we start the last one. We do have one more, but nobody wants to.
It's usually the ladies doing it.
I'm good for 5 minutes.
Really? Is this a bathroom comment? Is that
I just use the
All right,
restroom either way.
we'll take a short 5-minute recess.
so, Mr. Susan?
Okay, Dr. Rendell, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sue Hand is back at the podium. She's going to lead
All
us
right,
to
Sue.
another presentation. And I'm just going to turn it over to Sue.
I'm sorry that you're stuck with me for your afternoon. This one is going to be mostly about process. So we're looking at building the surtax renewal plan. And I wanted to kind of go through with the board what we presented to the Citizens Oversight Committee meeting last week. And we do have two members here. Our chair, Mr. Hoppengarten, and our secretary, Ms. Dennis, are both here today. And so they've seen this presentation. The adds to the presentation are what the ICOC recommended. So they gave us some really good advice on how we should develop the plan, and I'm excited to present that to you today. And I'm going to go through all this foundational stuff that is probably going to lull you to sleep, but I wanted you to have all this information because it speaks to the decision-making process about, should we think about capital, where does surtax come in, where does impact fees go, all these things are related. And I wanted to show those relationships and show you the statutes around how we can spend different pockets of money and all of that. So you have the framework of why we're recommending what we're recommending in terms of the development of the plan. So just to get started, building this plan is going to be an iterative process. There's a lot of variables now, and as time goes on, the list just gets longer. So we wanted to start with what are the things that we know? We have a pretty good idea of our condition assessments. What can we predict? We've been tracking revenues, tracking costs, so we've got some good data. And then thinking about the sensitivity of decisions to changing conditions. And that's really where the ICOC came in and gave us some, what I think is really good advice. And then also stakeholder engagement. We in facilities have, kind of even a siloed approach, right? We want the buildings to be in good shape, but there are other things that are important to our schools and our community that we need to understand what those are so that we can consider that as we're building our plan. So we've been spending the last several months really trying to get our assessments squared away, looking at our building systems and what our priorities should be for those building system renovations, trying to figure out what are the variables that might influence the decisions that we will be making. And then, as I said, we met with the ICOC last week and presented more or less the same presentation, and we'll be giving this to you today. So when we introduced this to the ICOC, we asked them for feedback on these topics. And there's a lot of things that you can say. So for example, I did very conservative revenue estimating and built a pretty conservative draft plan because I don't want to outspend our money or make commitments that we can't live up to. And that strategy has worked really well for the past two surtax plans. We've had more resources than programmed projects, which has allowed us to really make impactful plan modifications. So when something goes awry in a building system, we have been able to work through the Citizens Oversight Committee and bring to the board. You see those regularly on your agenda. We have some resources we want to put towards typically building system projects and renewal of facilities that we haven't been able to renew, that are things like our track renewal. We had our high school tracks were in deplorable conditions, and we were able to upgrade all our high school tracks by virtue of the sales tax. Our classroom conditions, really impactful classroom projects that we've been able to do. So we've been able to add projects as a result of a pretty conservative approach to revenue estimating, but that's not the only way to do things. Similarly with cost estimating, our cost estimates in the 2020 plan, not surprisingly, were a little bit low. And we've looked at a 3% annual inflation rate, which is probably low going forward through the 10 years of the plan. We could do more, we could do less, but even just estimating our costs for a roof project is challenging because we're never sure what the scope might be. So we have these 60-year-old buildings, and you say we're going to do roof renewal. We can say, well, it's X dollars a square foot kind of thing, but when you really get into it, well, we need the roof, well, we need the gutters, and oh gosh, the downspouts go into the drainage system, and oh my gosh. And by the time you're done, we are doing much more than what the original intent was. And so we really wanted to be cautious about how much of a commitment we were making in the plan relative to specific projects. And so the one that is highlighted is about the project's 10 years out. So we have a 10-year plan, and we started to look at planning a 10-year horizon. And when we looked at this relative to, what do we do in the out years? Like, it's hard to predict what we need next year, much less what we need in 9 years in the future. I can tell you with certainty we're going to need air conditioning and electrical and roofing, like all the things we need today, we're going to need 10 years from now. Where that goes is a little bit up in the air. We can develop a 10-year specific plan. We drafted one. Like I have some ideas, we have data, we put it all to paper, and we showed the ICOC, like, this is what happens if you do it this way. And they came back and said, really, you're better off doing a shorter term plan and then annually adding a year of definitive projects, because it will allow you to respond to changing priorities, respond to changing conditions, whether those are financial or the landscape of what our building footprints are. So we really thought that was a good recommendation, and that's the way we're going to go. So the other pieces of this are things like we expanded the resolution to allow for new construction or allow for we tear down the 70-year-old building and put up a new building. But if you do that, it really erodes the amount of resources available for the building system. So for example, the middle school was about $55 million. The predicted revenue from the sales tax on an annual basis that comes to facilities is somewhere in the magnitude of $45 to $55 million. So one school eats 1 year if it's a middle school. Elementary goes a little farther. High school would be more than a year's worth of revenue. But I do think having that in our resolution allows us to supplement other funding sources. So for example, with our separate day school, if we were short a couple of million, we might have been able to say, okay, we're going to use this source, Funds 18, and then we can go through the ICOC and the board reallocation process and put a little bit of money towards it. So having that opportunity, I think, is really good. But the plan that we will be developing, it does not have new facilities in it. So really wanted to get some feedback from the ICOC and the board, so that was the purpose of the introductory slide. So I'm going to go through the rest of this pretty quickly. I think you all are relatively familiar with all of our different funding sources, but basically capital and surtax are the two big sources for facility renewal type work, and we do similar types of projects with both of those revenue sources. What has happened in the past year is the relationship between capital and operating has evolved. So our capital revenues have been increasing because our property values have been increasing. That's given us more latitude to do more projects. However, the strain on our operating budget and the legislative framework has changed that allows the use of our capital dollars to cover additional operating expenses in the terms of salaries for people who support assets that are funded by capital. So we went through this through the budget cycle, and I would expect we'll have another conversation around this in the next budget cycle. But what this means for me in planning surtax is that I'm probably going to have less capital for capital projects on the capital side of things, so I want to cover building systems on the surtax side. So that's why you will not, well, that's one of the reasons you won't see new project or new schools, new replacements, things like that in the draft plan that we're working on, because I'm worried about this going forward and I want to see that stabilize before we start making bigger decisions about how much capital we have to supplement what we're doing with our surtax. So this is just a list of things that you can use capital for. So this is the 1.5 mil property tax that comes in every year in about December. And so we do all of our facility stuff, we can do new construction, school buses, all the technology stuff, and then this is where we pay our debt service from capital. Also, we use it for, if we have environmental health and safety issues, that's an eligible expenditure under the statute. And then the blue section is the salaries and benefits for employees whose job duties support activities. So funded by the subsection. So that's things like our maintenance team, which has always been allowed, and then it's been broadened to allow things like bus drivers or techs in educational technology that support computers and things like that. So that's where it got broadened a little bit. And then we have traditionally paid property insurance premiums out of this funding source as well. Now the sales tax is very, very similar, but a little bit different. The big difference is that you cannot use sales tax for operational expenditures. So when we have a direct expense to a project, yes, that's fine, but we can't use this to pay for teachers or maintenance, grounds maintenance, things like that. So it has to be a capital expenditure, cannot be an operating expenditure. But generally speaking, the rest of this is pretty similar. Capital and surtax are shared with charter schools. And so that is a consideration as well that has affected our revenue stream. This is an excerpt from the resolution that was approved by the school board regarding the sales tax renewal that was just accepted by the county commission to place this on the ballot. And you can see we broadened the scope a little bit to allow for new construction and replacement of facilities. So I think that will be a helpful tool in the future as we move forward through the program. So the facilities funding, as I mentioned, sales tax dependent on the local economy, expires in December. Capital and millage dependent on property values. And then we share our capital and surtax and millage with charter schools. We're at about 14%. Capital is on a glide path that was created by the legislature, so it's not quite at that level yet, but that's about where it's going. Just recalculated our charter share, it's a little over 14, so it's about 14.1-ish. We're validating those numbers now, but it's creeping up slowly. And the charter market has been impacted a bit by the scholarship landscape. So where that's going is a big variable, but our conservative estimate framework for the surtax revenue, I think will keep us, making sure that we have enough revenue to cover our projects. So on the capital side of things, as I mentioned, there's this little bit of push-pull between capital and operating that will be going into our next and future budget cycles. But this kind of outlines, and I showed this to the ICOC to kind of give them the indication of this is how we spend our capital dollars. And off the top, we pay for our debt service. Our debt service continues through fiscal 32 as it is today, and then it reduces until fiscal 36. But after 32 and 36, this is going to free up some capacity for potentially new schools or for school replacements. So this is where the surtax may come in as a supplemental funding source where we have capacity on this side of the house too. So that's kind of the look of the distribution of capital monies. Facilities gets about $21 million for our maintenance staff. That is our solid investment in keeping our facilities maintained. And then we get about 28-ish million this year for projects, and these are all sorts of things that you see on your capital project list. And keep in mind, we have 80-something facilities, so this seems like a big number. It's not that big a number if you start applying it to our schools. So looking forward, This is the revenue history for the sales tax, and I included this slide to kind of show you the cadence of year-to-year increases in sales tax revenue, and you can see it by month and you can see it by year. But right now, we're kind of running about 2 to 3% per year increase in sales tax revenue. We had a huge jump between the COVID years and the coming out of COVID years, but that kind of has steadied now, and we've kind of maintained in the 60-something million dollars a year, and this is gross revenue, so this, you take 14% off the top when you get to the charter piece. So looking at 66 to 68 million annually, charter share is about 14%. And then I did some revenue testing, or scenario testing. So I built a chart that looked at the surtax annual growth, and you could put in some different numbers, looked at the charter annual growth, looked at our COFTI, which is a subset of our enrollment number, and actually tested some scenarios with our COFTI going down. That is a function of the state. The state actually gives us that number. So we have a little bit of response to what the state provides, but we do not set that number. So I looked at a couple different scenarios, again, trying to be relatively conservative as to what's our baseline for building a program. So, you know, I kind of used 45 million annually as just a round number as a target for our team, and for security and technology, used a round number of about 10 million. So that's where the revenue went to. Now, when you see a specific program, you'll see an annual program that has revenue targets, but this is where we started. So then we started to think about, okay, how are we going to spend this money? And there's a lot of opportunity to do great things in our school district. And all of these categories have opportunities in them. And our team and others helped us out. We just had a lot of data. So, you know, we can kind of tell you who's got the worst whatevers and who's got the best whatevers. And we have a lot of work that remains to be done. And what's interesting is, you know, our maintenance director was building kind of the longer term program, and he's looking at, well, we're going to start to replace the things that we did in 2015, as we're starting to get towards, you know, the 15-year life cycle or the 20-year life cycle within the surtax 3 term. So, you know, we think, oh my gosh, we did a great investment in air conditioning, everything's fine, everything is fine, but we still have to annually refresh those assets in some manner. So, you know, a lot of what we're doing now, things like roofing, you know, very, very deferred maintenance. We're in really good shape with our air conditioning, but I don't want to minimize our investment in HVAC and then go back to where we were 10 years ago, because nobody wants to be there. That was bad for us, bad for education. And so, you know, keeping up that regular investment in HVAC, we feel, is pretty important. But I show you this slide to show you we have a lot of data, and we use that data to try to build our refreshment program. So how do we do this? So we kind of looked at the big rocks first, right? So looked at things like roofs and air conditioning. Like, we want to make sure we're dealing with those first. So they were kind of the top of the line. We had some discussions about, is intercom security, camera security, cameras ET, like who's got the ball on those things, and we're still kind of working through all of this. Looking at fence renewal, both on the security side, and the athletic side, probably through capital. So there's lots of interwoven parts that went into developing this. And then, you know, I have data on a lot of these things, but in terms of direction to our team, when we're building the plan, a lot of this stuff we're assuming we're going to fund with capital. So these are kind of the things that you typically see in your annual capital plan that come out of the committee on advocating for the capital program. And then there's a whole series of slides of things that are not in the surtax plan. And I just want to make sure that you all hear this and give me some reflection back on this, because I I want to make sure that we're developing a plan that is in alignment with the board's direction. So we don't have replacement of schools just yet. We don't have new schools, and we don't have ancillary facilities. So we have, especially in the athletics realm, but also relative to things like auditoriums, and I'm never sure what the plural of that word is, but there are schools that don't have an auditorium, and there are schools that don't have tracks, and there are schools that don't have the same level of concession stand, and there's a lot of things that if every school had everything, we could probably build the entire plan that includes just those things. So we haven't funded ancillary facilities in here as of yet. Athletic support facilities, as I mentioned, they're not uniform across the district, and we're not in this program making an attempt to make them uniform. We've typically been trying to do those like kind of one-off little projects through the capital program. So you see press boxes and things like that in the capital, on the capital side. Earlier, talked about Gardendale. We've been and are exploring the consolidation of Cape View into Roosevelt as a single school. We haven't had a decision on that and won't until January, and so the draft plan that you'll see in November for the surtax will have some Cape View probably in year one to allow time to make that decision. So Cape View and Roosevelt are still in the mix for things that are high priority based on our assessments. We've closed the ALCs, so I do not have any investments planned at this time for Gardendale or the South ALC. Riverview is an interesting case. We have our own team is in there for maintenance, and then we have some community users. I don't have anything planned for the sales tax renewal as of yet for Riverview, but it's getting to the point where it's going to need a roof, or we're going to need to decide we're not going to use that facility as a district asset. Like that's a decision that's going to come up in the next couple of years. And then certainly we can do better with our transportation facilities, and there's general building systems in here, but there's not a build a new transportation facility in the initial considerations for the surtax plan. Long-term, talked about like rebuilding Stone as a K-8, thinking about other low enrollment schools. We've had some very, just generic conversations around that. New schools in the Palm Bay area and cost share, like there's all these options out there that we could use sales tax for. And then you recently heard about the state legislation about Schools of Hope. That may play into this in some manner. The way the legislation, the Florida Administrative Code reads currently is if we have a School of Hope operator in our facility, their capital dollars basically stay with us, just kind of the short version of that. But at least on that side, that's somewhat covered. So, when I got to this point of how I'm going to build this plan, it took a bit to kind of actually get to what do we do next. So here's how we built it, right? We took revenue first, looked at the assessments, and I gave this to our team and said, here's a rough distribution among renewal categories. Don't include Gardendale, South ALC, or Riverview. Cape View include, but not in year one. And prioritize those building systems, the critical ones and the potentially critical. So basically, things that we should be doing in the first 3 years, let's do those in the next 10, like just to make sure I set the stage appropriately. Like we're not getting down to school 45 on the list for the most part. So this is not reality. This is what I gave to my team and said, all right, for HVAC, let's pick about 3 to 4 projects a year, right? For roofing, we really need a big investment there. So, let's figure out $10 to $15 million a year in roofing. And so I kind of gave them some parameters, and they gave me back, these are what we would recommend for our schools. So here's all the building systems that we looked at, and they went through literally all of these. Doors and windows, kind of a big investment, and we've been chatting with security about doors and windows, our security investment versus facilities. We're kind of in the facility camp at the moment, so we think we're going to have a fairly big number on the doors and windows. That helps us with air conditioning by improving the building envelope, and it also helps us with water damage that potentially occurs through some of our doors and windows that are 60 years old. So that, in my mind, is one of the more impactful investments for the Surtax 3, is to get our building envelope tightened up. We looked at classroom renewal, and, you know, doing an entire school is a $2.5 to $4-ish million project, depending upon the school. But I got to tell you, this to me is such an impactful investment, and I know I regularly send you all the photographs before and after. I have some from Roy Allen Flooring that I'll send you later today. But it just makes such a difference at the school. And so we got creative. It's like, let's put some money here. Parking and drainage is a problem. Like, if you drive to a school, you will say, we need more parking, we need to upgrade the parking lot, and the drainage is terrible. Like, it's kind of the way it is. So that we are covering a little bit. That's going to be more on the capital side, not a big investment on the Surtax side. Athletics, we're covering playground renewal based on the condition assessment. Grandstand renewal, there was a handful that needed a pretty big investment, and I would like to get this outdoor, particularly elementary hardcourt renewal project done. We've been trying to do this with capital. It takes a lot of money, and we have a lot of schools that, if you go to an elementary school and you go out to their basketball court, this is an area that we really need to improve. So I've got an investment there. We're also covering pools. I think I forgot to put that in there. So we've got 4 pools, and we need to do some fairly major work at our pools. We'd like to continue a 10 to 12 year painting cycle, so every school gets repainted in a 10 to 12 year cycle. So that's kind of the framework of how we put money to projects, at least in our initial look. So the first round working draft that came out, that we just showed it to the ICOC and said, this is, you know, this is not ready for prime time, but this is how a first cut really looks. So we've got a lot of roof projects, a lot of air conditioning, a lot of cabinets. You know, our plumbing is 50, 60 years old too, and we're putting some investment there, but it's not huge. We're probably going to start doing some investigative work in terms of our sewer systems to try to get ahead of potential problems. So that's probably going to be an area that might go up over time in the program. Big investment in doors and windows. And we come up with about a $570 million a year, or I'm sorry, $570 million plan over 10 years, which is about $100 million more than I think we have. So that's where we started, and I do all that to kind of let you know that we have a lot of things that we can invest money on that are impactful for our schools. Like, this is building systems, classrooms, basic athletics, and we're not even touching it all. Like, these are just the critical high priority needs over a 10-year period. And keep in mind that as those 10 years are going on, the things that are good in year 1 are starting to degrade in year 10. So I wanted you to see this because you're going to see in the program that we put together a lot of building systems, classrooms type of thing. So when we go from here to actually building a program, we will have to move the schedule out. We can reduce some project categories, reduce some projects. And, you know, if there's some other priorities the board would like us to look at, you know, good time to talk about those today so we can think about how we fit those within the financial framework. And, you know, frankly, I probably could estimate a little bit less conservatively on the revenue side too. So there's some different options to get to the end, but I wanted to lay out all of this so that you all could be thinking about this as we start building the program and talking about it. So if we have the situation as we have done with the surtax 1 and 2, where our revenues exceed our budgeted projects, we can use our funding for a lot of things. I know we've been talking about turf and turf renewal. That's a good investment, especially at schools that are subject to like overuse injuries of their grass. Like we just cannot get the grass to grow because there's a human on that grass 100% of the time. And then when we've added middle school and elementary sports, like there's just more and more and more pressure on these fields. So this is probably a good investment, and we may fund some with capital, may fund some with surtax, but really want to take a hard look at that, because that may be something that we need at certain schools just because we can't maintain the fields. And if we start having a majority of schools with turf, then it seems logical that would be, our philosophy. So, that's a conversation probably for another day, but it's a big number that we need to decide where we're going with that number. I'm asking for some perspective from the board before I leave today, just so, as I'm starting to build a plan, if there's some things specifically that you all would like us to. I promise you, I'm about a minute from finishing. Okay. Okay. So this was the ICOC's recommendation, and again, we are all on board and think this is a good approach, where the 10-year plan is too long and it's not flexible and adaptable, and we think a better approach is doing project specifics 3 to 5 years, and then each year we would have an annualized process where we come to the ICOC and say, hey, we'd like to add the sixth year. These are the projects in the sixth year, and the ICOC will give us feedback and guidance, and then we'll bring that to the board. So we would incorporate an annual process that includes the Citizens Oversight Committee as well as the board to kind of add the sixth year of the program, so to speak, till we get through the tenure. And that is kind of a typical government capital programming process. We have some ICOC members that are pretty well versed in capital project programming, and they were pretty clear that that would be a better approach, and I agree. So that's where we're heading. And I believe this is my last slide. So just getting your feedback, and then we're going to work on developing a very specific plan, and we'll come back to you in November with, we're going to do this chiller at this school and this year type of plan. So you will have an actual plan to look at in November. Once the board has seen it, then we will bring it to the ICOC in December for them to kind of look at, and then bring out to our internal and external stakeholders. So there'll be kind of a, here's the plan time frame. Once we get past the public hearing regarding Cape View and Roosevelt, we can make those decisions. And then intention would be to have the final plan adopted by the board in February after final ICOC review. So I think that concludes my part. Russell has a few slides, but I think it's probably a good idea to talk about the facility stuff, and then I'll turn it over to Russ.
With some feedback.
I'll chime in.
Okay.
Well, first of all, Sue, thanks to you and your team as always. You guys always do an awesome job. Thanks to the ICOC for all their work. To me, it's like if this doesn't pass, we're in deep, deep trouble, because we're in trouble even if it does pass. Because with all this, this is just a lot of keeping the train on the tracks and keeping it rolling. As far as new facilities or replacement, I mean, to not have that in our future budget with a lot of aging buildings, that just seems like we're heading for a crash somewhere down the road, and there's just not enough money to go around. So it's none of our fault. It's just the way it is. So, and if we have to go into debt for a new building, then we're probably going to be drawing from that money to pay for it, right? The surtax to pay for it. So it's a vicious circle. I just want, just here complaining. I don't expect an answer, but it just seems like I wish we could. I don't know how we could, with the money that's available, come up with a plan to incorporate replacement of buildings having some money on hand for a future, a new school down the road. With the growth in Palm Bay, it's almost inevitable, I would think, at some point, either south or west. So to even talk about, artificial fields is like, to me, it's hard even going down that road. Obviously, I think it's, from an athletic perspective, having athletic fields would be a huge plus for our students, a huge, benefit to this, to the facilities crew for less maintenance. But there's a replacement cost on those too. They're not a one and done. So there's just, I appreciate the fact that you prioritized everything the way that you have. I know it's been an incredibly difficult job to move all these shells around. So I know that doesn't give you much direction, because I just think you've done a good job with how where you're allocating the money at this point. I don't know how we could plan any better, to be honest with you, other than not plan for some of the upgrades of the facilities, or just keeping the facilities running. If we're going to put money aside for a replacement of a school, you have to choose. So I don't really, that was a lot of rambling for nothing, but I appreciate all that you've done, and I wish we had some more money. And let's hope it passes.
All right.
All right, well, I'm just going to go with my notes from the beginning. I just had a few slides that I made notes on. I think that were next to the ones you put the exclamation point on. You want our feedback. As far as the new construction thought, I appreciate if we continue on the plan similarly as what we have done with using it for renewal for facilities. We always have those extra dollars, because you are so conservative in estimating, which I very much appreciate, that, you take to the ICOC. We have an extra $1 million that came in the last quarter over what were expected, and so ICOC, will you approve, and then board, will you approve to use this money sometimes to add dollars to projects that now are more expensive, or they started digging in there and realized, oh, we actually have to replace all the sewer lines in this project we didn't anticipate. But if we have extra funding over what you conservatively estimated, or the interest, we also have the interest off of each sales or tax plan, I would really like to see that money go towards potentially helping us pay for these buildings, so that the board can continue to stay out of debt and use things like line of credit. The line of credits have worked great for the new middle school when we had a lot of impact fees built up. But as we're drawing down those impact fees and we have less, building a whole new school like a K-8 is going to be quite expensive, and impact fees just aren't going to cut it. But if we could supplement that to help do the construction or reconstruction where we can't use impact fees, like rebuilding zone. So all the extra money that comes in, I would love to see that get used towards new construction or reconstruction, if that's the right word. And the other thing is, year over year, once we get through the glide path and we're settled on the charter schools get their share of the capital, we get our shares, capital continues to grow every year as property values increase. Assuming they're going to continue to increase, which is generally the case, we should have more capital money every year, too, minus inflation. But I'm not going to talk about that. I just wanted to comment on the auditorium thing, and I thank you for putting it in there. My view on that is that it shouldn't just be thinking about people who don't have them. I have to, and it's not just because my kids go there, I'm just going to be clear. I think about Mel High and the volume of use. They have a teeny auditorium for one of the biggest high schools, so does Vieira. It is very old. It gets used all the time. It gets used for band, orchestra, choir, plays, summer programming. They do testing in there. And they don't just do like 2 plays a year. They do like 6 plays a year. They're constantly in use, and it's a really old facility. And so, things, and I'm just throwing them out as an example. But if we have schools, I think it needs to be based on the use. Making sure that, if we've got schools who don't have anywhere, but if we've got a school who they're doing okay because they're really close to a facility that they can use for an auditorium, because some of them are really working, then, if you're a middle school that's parked next to a high school and you can use their auditorium, we don't need to build you anything, right? Because you have good use. And our high schools are so good at sharing. I have to give props to Heritage, who shares their auditoriums all the time. And O'Galley does too, all the time, just as examples in the south half of the county. O'Galley is hosting other schools' programs all the time, and I very much appreciate the way that they do that. But I think it needs to be not just on making sure everybody has all the things, because we can't do that, but how is your school using it? If you have large programs, then maybe you need to be prioritized in those needs. That's my 2 cents on the auditorium thing. Thank you for answering the question about the Schools of Hope, because I think we were just talking about that this afternoon. Why do they get capital dollars if we're having to cover all their capital expenses? So thank you for clarifying that, because that makes me feel a little better about that. And then as far as the planning goes, I totally am on board with a shorter plan. I honestly would appreciate like a 5-year plan. We did a 6-year plan with the renewal in 2020. And to be honest, I use that with my principals all the time. And I think I've mentioned this before, but every time I go to a school that has a new principal and we're talking about facilities needs, I say, hey, dig up this old document. I know it's a little out of date because COVID happened and all the supply chain, but look at what year your school was supposed to be painted. And a lot of them don't know that it's out there. And so to have at least a 5-year plan so they know, hey, we really could use more. It's not at the point of failure, but if I knew that my school's going to get this in the next couple of years, I could deal with it. So having a plan, at least I really appreciate it as a board member. I know our principals appreciated it, to say, okay, this year this is going to get done at my school, and this year this is going to get done at my school. So I think a 5-year plan is good, and I love that you would be continuously adding on. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Nice. Ms. Wright?
All right, absolutely in favor of the 5-year plan as opposed to the 10-year plan. I really cannot weigh in on new versus replacing, because I think that's just so specific to every situation that it's hard to say, should we look at this versus the other? There are times when each of them makes sense, right? And we learned that today. I personally would love to see more things, which I've talked to you about this, the competitive bid process. I would love to see more of that with construction. You've talked to me about, some of the struggles there when it comes to project managers and the capacity that we have here. But I think that that's a way that we could potentially maximize those dollars and the usage there. But other than that, I mean, your team is doing an amazing amount of work and an amazing job with the resources we have. There are endless opportunities to improve all types of facilities, and so I think that's just something that opportunities present themselves every single day. So I'm just grateful that you guys are looking at the big picture as a whole, but planning 5 years versus 10 makes it a little more obtainable, and it's in the near future, and someone can see the light at the end of the tunnel when 5 years is there versus 10 years. That seems like that's just forever away. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. I'm also in favor of the 5-year plan. You know what I mean? The LERPs and stuff like that from the state, the long-range plans are inconsistent with keeping those numbers low, not the 10 years and stuff like that. So love that. I know that came from you guys over at the ICOC. Good job. I did want to say, Ms. Campbell, you are 100% right on the auditoriums. I do know that it's difficult for some, like when I was at Space Coast, say for instance, and they were talking about you only have this amount of money to build, and you could possibly build an auditorium, or you could build a locker room, a mini gym, all these things. They chose to go down the mini gym and then keep the small area that they have, which is like Vieira's and stuff like that. And it limits that programs. It does. And it's something that's there. I do know that they're costly, right? I think one auditorium is the equivalent of like 8 athletic fields, or like 8 million or something, isn't it? What is the auditorium at?
It's like $30 to $40 million.
What is it
Probably
at?
$30 million.
It depends on what you mean by auditorium.
Yeah, like, okay, satellite auditorium, how much is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to get out of answering that question because I just don't know.
But I think I would
think
love
it's
to
30
work
I
with
think it's
you.
about $30 million.
Please don't say that. I was thinking 8.
Oh, no,
come
Mr.
on
Susan,
now.
I believe when they built all those auditoriums back in the day, they were almost $20 million. I have in my head somewhere, don't quote me,
Sounds
but
about right.
But I think this is also a large conversation that we should be having with like our community partners and stuff, because there's not enough, like you go up to the north end, I love the Titusville Playhouse, I love it, right? But there's opportunities, and I think that utilization of it, and Sue and I were talking about this yesterday in her office, like, we could do very well, but we shouldn't be the only ones to have something like that. We should be able to share it with them. So I'd love to work with you on, Sue and I put together a comprehensive plan for all of the athletic fields in the county and said, okay, like here, for not only us, but for the TDC and everybody, and we talked about how to collaborate there. I think we could also do something like that with the auditoriums and then actually start moving, because like you just saw, like I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, if I was honestly thinking it was 8 million. I'm not lying to you. I was all excited. I was like, well,
wish.
I was like, we could actually work on it.
Field.
No, it's one.
We could do
Oh, yeah.
5 new auditoriums a year.
But what I was getting at is I'd love to work with you on doing that. Like, let's engage our fine arts communities and stuff like that and put together a plan that might do that. I don't know if we're going to raise 20 million. I'm so upset now because I really was thinking 8 million. Now I'm thinking, all right, anyways, the other thing I would like to suggest to the board is this. In relation to the athletic fields, I wanted to say, I do not like turf. I don't like it. I have never been a big fan of it. I am a grass guy. The problem we have is that our athletic fields are in such poor condition that there are some schools that there's no way that we can continue to go down the roads we are. For instance, last year, O'Galley, right during their playoffs, the FHSAA called and said, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to host the game because your field is so bad. Heritage High School, they were literally, they had to get a push mower to mow the grass because the rains were so bad. And what, just so everybody understands, what do we mean rains? When it rains out there, it will not dissipate from the field. It literally ruins the games, and then the field gets ruined, and it's just horrible. We had 27 fields, I think it was like 15 years ago or something like that. Now we have 57 fields. Our maintenance guys, there's just no way. Like, there's literally no way. I don't know if you guys saw it when I was running for office. I was bragging about how we were expanding our elementary school sports, and one of the maintenance guys got on there and ripped me so bad, it was ridiculous, right? And what he did was, he told me, you're so wrong because you don't know how bad the fields are. You have put your players in a bad place. And I'll be honest with you, like, beyond FHSAA shutting it down, there's questionableness to those fields, and it's nobody's fault. It's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It was my fault because I wanted to expand athletics, and your guys' fault because you decided to do it with me. So, but
It went from nobody's fault to all of our fault real quick, didn't it?
but the thing is that what I would like to propose is this. There are a host of schools out there that are like drop zero, destroyed. O'Galley's one. There's a couple other ones. I would like to, if it's okay with you guys, see if Sue can go back and put together these schools definitely need to move forward with turf, like without a doubt. Ask even the ground maintenance guys, like, is there an opportunity? And then bring that back to us as possibly part of your plan, only because, I'll be honest, you guys, it's going to be only worse. We're going to have kids getting hurt and all that stuff. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of turf. I'll be honest, it's the future. Everywhere we go to Orange County, everybody's got turf fields. But I do think, like you were saying, Mr. Thomas, it's not like you can just say, we want all new turf fields, right? But I do believe that there are some places in our county, and that this could work. Maybe like 3 or 4 fields just to get them done so that we're not dealing with that, that's all. Are you guys okay with something like that?
So, Mr. Susan, on tonight's agenda, we're actually approving a job description for an athletic fields maintenance person. I think it might be good to get that person in place because that seems like that would be a big part of their job.
You had mentioned, though, that in November, I'll be honest with you, I've spoke to not only athletic directors about this, Mr. Nolan, like a year ago, I bothered him, I stopped bothering him because I felt like I was, but anyways, the thing is that I think they have, inside of their cover, they have the idea of which fields we need. We don't need that person to be there. I do agree that we need that person, but I would like to recommend that we let her go back and look and see if there's an opportunity to fill some of those, that's all. Just a handful of them. What do you think, as part of her plan?
I got a baseball field going in Titusville, and I'm okay with it looking at turf. I'm teasing. She's going, oh my gosh, you are not saying that. No, I think it's just one of those things that my initial concern is, okay, how are you going to determine which ones? And then there's going to be the whole, I like the idea of turf. I would love to know what the cost comparison is in a turf field versus a sod field. A sod field has continual maintenance. Turf field has less maintenance. There was some concerns in the past over some of the turf materials that were used. That's been eliminated at this point. I don't think that's a huge concern any longer. But I'm definitely, I said, let's explore it and look and see, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to wait till it was my time to talk, but yeah, absolutely.
He was
Sure,
staring
she's
right at me, I'm sorry. It's like,
Oh, it's good. Other than that, are you good?
I'm good, but I just wanted to make sure that there was direction from the board for her to take a look at, giving us some sort of a quasi, we can do this.
Well, yeah, I kind of wanted to add to that
Yeah,
on the turf. So that's where I'll start,
All right.
is just like with the auditorium projects, is to look at the use of it. But same thing on the turf. And for high schools and communities, I am a turf guy because I've been involved in communities where it really benefited the community as a whole. They just be able to open it up to the youth soccer teams, and the band was able to use it. In my school, the band couldn't touch that, but they had to perform there on game day. But when you're not having to worry about the condition of the grass, since Mr. Susan's the grass guy, we could use it at all times. So it's a huge deal. Just like having a really nice auditorium is a big deal. This isn't just about football games. It's about opening it up to our community and saying, look what our tax dollars, look what we could do. And I'm a huge one on that. But you look at that as far as what communities, first off, on the field use could use it, and then how much use could the community get out of that? Maybe they don't have the fields for the youth programs in the area, but they could use it on the days that we're not, using it. But, and then what Mr. Susan had mentioned, create that list of priorities that way. And, we'd all, again, be all for what is going to help the big community first, and then, obviously the schools. So also the 5-year plan makes complete sense. Everybody can just, see it, feel it, touch it a little bit more at a 5-year versus a 10-year plan. But was that enough feedback?
Yes, thank you. That was actually perfect. I appreciate the insights, and we'll be back in November. I did want Russell to have an opportunity. Russell,
Yes.
where are you? Oh, there you are.
He's right there. He's waiting.
Mr. Cheatham has a few slides on kind of the ET version of this. Fortunately, it's a lot shorter. So, so Mr. Cheatham,
All
I'll
right.
cede the mic for you.
And once
Thank
again,
you,
thank you,
Sue.
Sue, for everything.
Good afternoon. So quickly, I'll go through the ET portion of the Surtax renewal. Similar to what Sue deals with, we're dealing with facilities that are 50, 60 years old, facilities that when they first start off didn't even have technology running through them. So naturally, we have to update that technology from time to time. When it comes to the Surtax renewal, we came up with 2 options. We have 5, 10, and 15-year plans, but typically with technology, after 5 years, the plan kind of goes up in smoke and noise because technology is changing too fast. So we offer 2 options. The first option, we call it structured cabling. Basically, it's network infrastructure. Our schools, as they age, we have to go back in and rewire the entire school. We do that because everything that we use every day counts on that infrastructure, whether it's cameras, intercoms, our laptops, HVAC systems, everything at this point is relying on our infrastructure these days. So option 1 for us was to redo 53 schools, rewire the schools, do the infrastructure for their schools. Great work that needs to be done. But as you guys all know, we've made some great strides with modern classrooms as well. Found it very difficult to just do the rewiring without continuing the investment that the district has already made in those modern classrooms. So our second option, do a couple of less rewiring jobs, but do a lot more in the modern classroom realm, making sure that we are Thank you. So yes, so option two just includes the 7-year refresh cycle of our modern classrooms. Again, we made a big investment. I think I've heard from every board member as you visited schools, some of the amazing things that you've seen with the modern classrooms. Just didn't feel comfortable not touching that for a long period of time. We need to keep that going. I think it's also a great retention tool for our teachers, a great engagement tool for our students. So we just felt we had to figure out a way to keep that going forward. So out of those two options, we were recommending that we do, yes, about 38 structured cabling schools, but also make sure that we continue to refresh and keep those modern classrooms there. And with that, my next couple of slides is talk about some pros and cons. The only difference is in one example, we do about 50 schools. The second example, we do close to 40 schools, but we also do some modern classrooms. So happy to answer some questions, but that's high level.
I'm 100% in favor of option two. Option two does touch virtually, every student at that point. I would love to see Promethean boards in every single one of our classrooms. Like, that is one of the goals. I think that we should knock that off. Where are we at on that process? Because I get asked that a lot of times when I go into schools. They want a Promethean board because they've seen them somewhere else. So where are we at in that process?
So we're still moving forward. Last year, we were able to do about 700 Promethean boards throughout the district. We're a bit over 2,000 boards district-wide. We got close to 4,800 classrooms district-wide. We are doing the Promethean boards grades 4 and up, but we're revisiting the lower grade levels as we finish. Every day, we're hearing stories about how it would be great to have a Promethean board here or there. Even in our activity and even our CTE classes.
Yeah.
Just some great examples of how that technology can be used. So again, felt that this is something we just have to keep moving forward with, so we had to find a way.
So is option two, would that entail Promethean boards, and would that finish out the rest of the classrooms, or is that just completing our grades?
It will get us closer to all classrooms.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that it will
All
do
right,
that.
I'm like, whatever we gotta do to get us,
Again, with the 5-year plan,
ideally.
the costs change so much. It's
Yeah.
very difficult.
Is, just on the back end of that real quick, do all classrooms require it? Meaning, do all subjects that are teaching, there may be some teachers that teach a certain subject that don't really need a Promethean board, or are we at the place where all of our teachers are engaging on them? I didn't know. I just was asking.
I'd like to say it depends on the teacher.
It does.
Already at this point, some of the classrooms, I used, Dr. Rendell and I were talking about shop. There was a shop class. He said, if I had one of those, I could show everyone how to work on a car, do it the same way. I would have never thought of that. So every day, a teacher's figuring out a new way to use this technology, and we love it. We just got to get the technology to them.
We are using millage funding for part of the modern classroom upgrades, correct?
Very small portion.
Okay.
Very small.
Okay. That part of that 4% that's for.
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
So this would allow us to speed that up.
This will allow us to keep moving forward.
Okay.
Surtex has always been kind of the bigger part of this project, so we're just continuing to move forward with it.
With the structured cabling, I know we do that every year. About how many schools are we doing with that?
So it's a
per year?
rolling plan. With structured cabling, when a school hits about 25 to 30 years of having cabling, that's when we go back to recable it because, again, technology is changing. At about the 25-year mark, either the conditions of the school and the wiring in the wall kind of start getting a little bad, or, for instance, if you have wiring that can take 5 gigs of information coming through, but all the rest of the equipment's trying to push through 10, our students are missing out on bandwidth that they could use. So we want to keep it up to date so we can get more technology to the students at a faster rate.
Okay. This option two, I think, what is it, 38-ish schools, so 3 to 4 schools per year over the 10-year. This is over the 10 years, right?
Correct.
Okay. So is that kind of what we're doing now, the ballpark 3 to 4?
It's what we've been doing, yes.
Okay.
And like I said, we have a rolling list. We know the time that every school was last done, so we just keep moving forward, keeping an eye on aging schools. And
Awesome.
on the beach side, the wires corrode a little faster just because of the conditions, so we have to keep an eye on that too.
They do.
I support y'all's recommendation. I think option 2 will be great. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Thomas?
Support option 2, and I just like to comment, being new to visiting the schools over the past year and a half or so, I've been amazed at the technology, and it's a tribute to you and your team, because I agree, the students and the teachers love it, and I'm glad that we can keep on going with it, so.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Susan?
Two's good. I was just trying to see what the difference in cost was.
I don't think
It's the same.
it's the same cost, it's just the difference in projects.
That's where we focus the
They
dollars.
divide it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, same. I mean, Mr. Thomas said, it's great seeing those classrooms, those modern classrooms. And you said fourth and on, but it's really neat seeing the little kids
Yeah.
in front of those
They
Promethean
love 'em.
boards as well. So, yeah, keeping up with technology is, I mean, you just got to, I mean, you've pulled out all your hair. It's a tough one. So, it's been a long day.
Being so funny.
We have so
But
much
thank
fun.
you again
So
for, for
funny.
that process, so. I
And
think
I would
you
say
guys-
similar to facilities, we're trying to spread it out as best we can, but we could always use more, so.
All right, we got you. Dr. Rendell, you want to add anything?
Not here.
Okay,
I'm
great.
good.
So,
This is you.
with that, board, do you have anything further to discuss? I think we do.
I do, I
I do
know,
too.
I'm like, we're all jumping at the bit, a couple
Well-
things. Go ahead, you can go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
And just shortly, we need to schedule a time to redo Mr. Gibbs' evaluation. The longer we go, he is now operating still under the old evaluation until we fix it. So I would request that the superintendent, on an upcoming workshop, whenever we can, let's go ahead and add that, because the board, we've said for 2 years, we're going to do it. Now, we need to just nail down a time and get that done. I think we actually already had the research from some other counties. If somebody can resend all that out that was sent to us last year. But let's go ahead and get it on the calendar and get it done so Mr. Gibbs knows what he's shooting for. I think that would be very helpful.
Awesome.
I like it. All right. It feels like it's been forever since we've all been together, so much has happened in such a short amount of time. But I want to kind of just talk about a couple things that took place in my district. And one of them was a huge shout out to thank you for Brevard County Sheriff's Office and their response. So we had a situation at a school in Port St. John, and it required all hands on deck. But really through this process, it was a bit of a learning process. And one of the things that came about that I think is very interesting is that when an individual's trespassed from a school or from a facility, like there's nowhere, that's not published anywhere. No one knows that. And I've heard from several parents that are going, hey, if we are your advocates, we want to look out for people. If there's somebody that's not supposed to be there, we want to know who that is. And so I'd reached out to Mr. Gibbs about this and asked if he had any questions or any concerns really with this. But board, what is an appetite for potentially putting out something to the parents, whether it's in focus or whatnot, of an individual who's trespassed from a school, so that if you see something, you say something in the event that they should step foot back on campus? I would like to see some kind of initiative that would help with communication go out from our district.
I'll chime in.
All right, go ahead.
Just given my past experience in law enforcement, I would just say I would be guarded about the liability associated with that. They're not convicted of a crime, they're just trespassed. So it's, they're not guilty of a crime until they go back on campus, and even then they're innocent until proven guilty. So I've certainly deferred to legal counsel's advice, but that would be my concern.
And I hear that concern. I think that's a valid concern, because the first thing I thought was, hey, what about like you go to a store and somebody steals something and they plaster their photo up? And, while I think that's not the best maybe way to do things, it's effective. I think it lets everyone know, hey, this person has committed a crime in that case or stole something. But again, just trying to figure out in an act of transparency and making sure that parents, again, can partner with the school district if there's an individual. They haven't committed a crime yet, but the school district has taken the initiative to say we don't want them on the property any longer. And if there's other people, other sets of eyes that can see an individual that shouldn't be there, I think it just helps us have more resources available. And it'll help our parents to know, hey, if you see this person, say something, kind of thing. I guess,
I actually thought what you were going to ask is if someone is I just lost the word.
Trespass.
Thank you. Trespass from one school, can we just say you're trespassed from all schools? Seems like that would be an intermediate. And then we send out the communication, but just to the schools, the front office staff. I have a similar concern to Mr. Thomas. I mean, one of the things, sometimes we have parents trespass who come in and just, in the most generous way I could say, they're having a bad day. And
I
they
know.
pitch a fit, and it just goes too far, and so they're trespassed. And they can only come on the school campus to pick your kid up. I mean, they're still
Right.
coming on campus, but, if you're going to act like that, then you know, and you have other children who go to other schools or whatever. But I don't even know how long that lasts. I don't know if that's just for a year, or if it's for
365,
forever.
isn't it?
Until it's lifted.
Until it's
lifted.
is technically.
Which I guess they would have
yeah.
to request it to be lifted. So,
Let me,
Yeah.
I probably should have shared the backstory on this one, because this is kind of where this initiates from, right? So there was an individual who was trespassed from one of our school sites, and it's an individual who has some mental health issues, no doubt about that, but very much in the neighborhood and around. And this has been all over social media, so at this point, none of this is a secret. He abandoned a vehicle outside of one of our school sites, and then I'm sure at some point somebody looked him up and figured out he was trespassed. Well, I didn't know he was, no one knew he was trespassed except for law enforcement. We can't see that, so to speak, right? But if our school staff knew that, or if other people knew that, then I think it would just help with accountability. I know that a lot of parents have been very vocal about the fact that they would love, love, love to know, like, hey, if somebody's not supposed to be on the campus, how are we supposed to know that? I mean, they could just be there and we have no idea. And I'm like, well, that's a valid question. I don't know who's trespassed at school sites, and I'm sure none of you know who's trespassed at school sites. There's no kind of communication from, you know, on our end on that, so.
which is just, it's one of the reasons why we have our front office hardening, because that
We do.
keeps them on that side. I mean, and just to clarify for anybody who's paying attention, this is not someone who was associated with our schools. This
No.
is not
No.
a parent who's
Not
throwing
even a
fit in the
parent,
office.
correct.
This is someone who is
Right.
completely unrelated to our schools.
Right.
But you do bring up a good question, and Dr. Rendell, I know being a former principal can answer this. Does the school staff know, you know, like administration, front office know who is trespassed for that school?
In every case that I've been involved in, everybody at the front office would know if an individual had been trespassed for that campus.
Correct.
Yeah, we
Yeah, that's
we would know.
They know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just know that I know there'd be no, in my limited legal knowledge, that there would be no problem with any staff member, any agent of the school being aware of that there's an active trespass warrant. But to put it out publicly, I think might open
Yeah,
us
I
up
could
to
see
liability.
because you can be trespassed for so many different reasons. And, you know, I'd hate for the community to now think that they have to police the town.
I don't think I'm not looking at it necessarily as policing, as
You don't.
more so as being an advocate to be able to help and see if there's somebody else that's there that shouldn't be there. But if maybe not to the community, then maybe to the school staff. Would it be fair to put that information out to the school staff in a way that everyone knows what's going on?
If I can speak real quick, I
Absolutely.
think what we're dealing with is two different types. I think you have the angry mom or dad who comes in and gets trespassed, right? And then you literally have an individual like what you were dealing with up there at the school district that was, at your school, that was a little bit different than that. I think that I believe it doesn't hurt us to vet out an idea, right? It just not to say no to it, and I understand what you say, Mr. Thomas, but I think it behooves us to allow the idea to vet out. What I would say is that there is probably a way of saying individuals, just like our assessor evaluations and others, that reach this certain type, we should know are almost a mini threat to our schools in the event that they come on our campus and they are threatened, right? Who we talk to, all that stuff. I would love to have staff look at it, take a look at it, and bring back a recommendation, because we all know we have kids inside the school, and if there's a person that's outside of our school that acts like that, does those kind of things, I would want to know.
Absolutely.
And I think that there might be a way that we can figure this out, but I don't want to ever say no to somebody that comes up with a great idea, so.
And
I think
district-wide
that's it.
makes complete sense. Just, you know, at least we should have knowledge of that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So
And that's a fair concession. So, I mean, you know, the parents are obviously very vocal and advocating for the fact that they would have liked to have known that this individual
know if that
was
would-
out there. And I'm like, I understand. I hear you 100%. But I think the more people that know, then the more people that can help, potentially.
And I mean, listen, so when people get arrested, there's a newspaper article that has their mugshots on it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we're so far beyond.
This might not be
we're so
in
far
ours.
Below arrest and not in that case.
Not in this case, but.
But there are some
Well,
instances
even if you get
where,
a speeding ticket, isn't that public records? I mean, you can look that up, right? If
Yeah, but
somebody-
the
post it.
sheriff doesn't put those people on his Facebook page.
No, he
they
doesn't, but I'm
can.
just, it's just an interesting dynamic, because I'm like, this person has done something that's so egregious that we said we do not want them on a school site anymore, they're not safe to be on the school site. And if people are sending their children there, then it's like, okay, well, then I want to know who's not allowed to be here, that way,
Why?
you know.
You gotta ask why.
Why what? Why
I
they,
mean, I don't know what the parent would do.
Well, see something, say something, make sure that the individual, if they were caught, in violation of the trespass. One of the things I would love to see our judicial system do is to make some type of release condition that if they violate a trespass on a school, that they have to wear an ankle monitor till if they fulfill whatever the term is of that punishment. That way we can help keep track of them, because I think that might help. But that's not our fight. That's somebody
Correct.
else's fight to take up, so.
You're right.
It certainly doesn't hurt to see what our options are,
Right.
if they are.
Exactly.
There it is.
Right.
So, yeah,
All right.
Mr. Susan makes sense. Just
All right,
I would-
so you want Mr. Gibbs to put together something that's legal for us?
We'll meet with
It's not gonna
Klein
get
and
us
everybody else and see
in
if there's
trouble.
a couple of ways to do that.
And again, I
Don't
always,
give Gibbs the idea first. Let Gibbs go through what we come
For
up
the
with.
record, Mr. Gibbs didn't feel as though there was anything here that he was concerned about, so.
Oh, okay, in that case, Gibbs,
yeah.
give us an idea of what it is.
No,
Never let the lawyer look at it first.
You want to tell today or you want to wait?
If you guys want a recommendation, I'll issue you a recommendation.
No, but
Yeah, I was not overly concerned with, I think we discussed posting it at the front office so that the people coming in would be able to see who's not allowed to be there. I don't have an issue with that.
right.
See,
I think
he was
also,
going to go one further and put
I
the
think-
photo up, see?
Like the
That's-
post office?
Yeah, like the post office,
Well,
think-
exactly.
I've been a part
I'm
of
okay with
churches who have, but it's not necessarily for public consumption, but they have it behind the children's check-in desk. There's
Yeah.
a picture for the people who are working the check-in desk. If you see these people, call this number,
Oh, yeah.
because we've had
I-
people come, when you're taking care of kids,
Oh, yes.
Which
I
we
told
are.
my
and
wife.
they're in that situation, they're even less secure than our schools. I mean, having a picture, but they're not putting it up on the wall for everybody to see. It's for the people who.
And for other
need
students to see, that was
Well,
so-and-so's dad.
That was my concern with posting a photo.
Hey,
is
look,
I
it's Mr.
don't want a
Susan up on the
child
wall.
to be- yeah,
I've been on some
that's-
pictures.
That part of it, I.
Because I would venture to say that most of the people who are trespassed from our schools are parents.
well, maybe they
Not
will
always.
not act a
But-
fool if they know that their
Right.
picture is
Said
going to
most.
go up there too. Maybe they won't act the way that we need to trespass
I
them
think
if
it
they
probably
know.
works in the gas stations. I don't know. Anyway,
Listen,
sorry.
if they know their picture's going to go up, they'll probably be more in line with acting appropriately.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Do we want
yeah, we,
I just said-
all right, and then, sorry, go ahead.
Are we going to talk about this are we going to continue the discussion in another work session?
Yeah,
or-
I like
yeah.
this. This
Well,
is
if
fun.
Mr. Gibbs can bring us back something that he thinks will keep us out of trouble,
Yep.
but still help with the act of transparency and protecting our children, I think that would be a good solution.
Yeah, just when we bring it up. Dr.
So
Rendell,
it
did you want
sounds
to
like
mention this?
we'll bring back some language probably at the next work session or the December work session.
That's fine. Yeah.
That
Thank
sounds
you.
good. So do we want to discuss the,
If the board wishes to spend a little bit of time on this, yes, I did provide each board member that I met with yesterday, I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell didn't meet with you yesterday, to a copy in blue. The blue copy is our proposed board meeting calendar dates for 2026. Lena developed this based on our current pattern of the second and fourth Tuesday of the month with some exceptions. For example, February, we meet the first Tuesday because it's FTE survey week, and then some other anomalies. And then I also gave you a copy of the proposed meeting dates for the county commission across the street. I believe they were voting on that today. I don't know if those are the dates they've approved or not, or if they're still meeting. But just to compare, to see like how our dates line up versus how their dates line up. Typically, we vote on this at the organizational meeting in November, but we don't usually review it before we vote on it. And so we make changes to it that night. We can do that. We can talk about it now, or we can do it then. And Paul, we do have to submit our
Yep.
meeting dates to the state by what
Yeah,
date?
I want to say it's like 7 or 14 days after the org meeting, so the org meeting's your one opportunity to
So
do
we pretty
this.
much need to do it on November 18th.
Yes.
we talked about a time of maybe even going through maybe this and also all the committees that we might be a part of or represent. I think that workshop might be a good one right before the board meeting on the 18th, because.
We do have it on the
Because
calendar.
last year we did this, but,
We did it with John because he was new, we pulled him in.
and we did it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we could do all that and then have this nailed down by.
You guys want to talk about this now? or
I mean,
Yeah, I
wait?
do have a little. I
We
have a
can throw
couple
some
things
things out now so we all know it,
Yeah.
I like it.
so.
Just as a reminder, in our contract with the teachers union, we have that we will generally try to keep board meetings to the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month because they have told their principals, in the contract, it says that the principals try not to schedule things at board meeting night so the teachers can participation. But also for consistency for the public, as much as we can keep the second and fourth Tuesdays, I prefer that. January is always an exception because, we only have one meeting a month. February, totally get. March, the reason why it's off is it's spring break. April's fine. May, I actually looked at that. I don't see a reason why we can't stick with the second and the fourth, and I would prefer that because 19th is the beginning of graduation week, and since we're going to have something every single night potentially that
Yeah,
week,
we
I'd
talked
rather do it on the 26th, which I think is what we did this year, and school gets out on the 27th, by the way. I would hope that June we could have morning meetings like we usually do. I had a question on the July, because sometimes in the July budget meeting, this would be a Cindy question probably. Okay, they wanted to do it on that Thursday. They were good with the 28th? Okay, so as long as they're good with that, because a lot of times we do it on the Thursday. August looks good, we're staying off their primary. September looks good. October, we moved that first one to the 6th for the same thing.
FTE survey week
Right,
again.
but we could go ahead, we could keep the other one on the 4th, which would be the 27th, which is what we did this year. We had the first Tuesday and
That's
the
correct.
last Tuesday. The December would be the other one that I would suggest we change. We usually only have one meeting in December.
Right.
That week after Thanksgiving, which is December 1st, is always FSBA.
FSBA.
And
It
you're,
is.
you don't want to do it then, especially when you're going to have a new board member on there, potentially 1, 2, or 3. So we could do it on, just being honest, we could do it on the 8th and keep it on the 2nd, which is similar to what we usually do. I think that's what we have this year, because this year we have it on the 9th. So in December, I would suggest we just have one meeting and do it on the 8th, but definitely not on the FSBA week.
So in May, were you talking about doing the 12th and the 26th?
Yeah, the 12th and 26th, just keep it consistent, and then we're not having graduation 3
And
nights a
then-
week plus a board meeting.
Speaking of the September one, do we have to have it on that Thursday? I know we've moved it to that.
So again, that's the budget timing. And so I'll check with Cindy, I'll check with Paul. If it can be moved to the Tuesday, then we'll move it to the Tuesday, and we'll have an answer by the 18th,
Yeah.
by November 18th. But I think
know
we
I said
originally
all
put it
that
there
fast,
because there's a
but-
certain date
Yeah.
that we have. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that made
That
made sense. But, anybody want to add anything?
Yeah,
Mr. Chair? Oh, go ahead.
Go.
Good, Matt.
Go ahead.
No, you go, man. I'm supposed to go second last.
I've got 3 dates that I know will be a conflict due to travel. February 3rd, June 9th, and July 28th.
You mean you're not going to be at Katie's birthday? party? There's
You
a,
missed my birthday.
is that what you're trying to do, is get her
Sorry.
off?
I don't know that we're going to be, it's going to be hard to work
Third,
around.
what was it, the third?
February 3rd, June 9th, and July 28th. It was similar to this year. That's pretty much a standard dates I'm tied up. I think I missed a
Okay.
couple of those same meetings this last year.
Yeah,
You said June 9th?
right.
February 3rd, June 9th, and July 28th.
So we do the
What if we
16th and only do one?
Or we just move that 9th to the 2nd? Oh, no, because you just moved the 26th up.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that.
But if we move it to the 16th, what we like to do is kind of what the county does, is they have that block in there of no
Yeah.
meetings, right?
Yeah, theoretically, you could move the June meeting to the 16th
16th.
and only have one meeting.
Yeah, but then we got to be yeah.
That's
I
a
know.
long time to go without a meeting.
But
Or
then
the
that means we
16th
only
and
have,
30th.
June and
well,
July.
then you've
That's
got
4
all of
weeks.
July.
Oh, I'm good with that.
You got a
If
whole
we did the
thing.
16th and if we did the 16th and the 30th, that still gives us 4
Yeah.
weeks.
Or just the 16th, and then we just get rid of the
Yeah.
23rd, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you said February 3rd, because I think Miss Katie has a conflict on that, too. So,
Well, if we take it off of my
Can
birthday,
you
we
put it
can take
on-
it off of Jean's
Yeah.
birthday.
Mine's the 24th, so.
I will
So-
happily celebrate 51 with you as long as you sing, Mr. Susan.
that's right, because mine's March, okay, so we're all in there.
But February
So-
3rd is FTE survey week. That's why we put it on there.
It has to be that week.
I don't want to try, well, are you going to be here? on
I'll be
another
back
day?
later, I'll be back on the 4th.
I hate moving meetings off of
Move it.
Tuesdays.
I know, just,
You move it to the
Yeah.
Thursday.
We'll miss you.
So I'll miss you.
Or we, I don't care, I can move it to the Thursday, I don't know, you want to do the Tuesdays? Is that in contract language?
Well, the contract language is that
Second, you'll
they
try
will
for
schedule
this.
things on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month so
Correct.
that teachers can participate. But just honestly, consistently, see for the community and for my own brain, I prefer just, let's do
Yeah.
Tuesdays as often as we
Well,
can,
until,
and except for when we can't.
You really want to be here on your birthday?
You know,
There's nowhere else she'd rather
you
be.
know where else I'd rather be.
We'll just try to make sure it's a short meeting.
yeah, we could do that.
Chocolate cake. makes
We'll
better
we'll have
than-
chocolate cake,
Just
for
we'll-
sure.
But we are talking about moving that 9th to the 16th, so that John can get there.
That was a suggestion.
That was a suggestion.
I like it.
I personally like that.
I like that.
I'm fine with it.
That makes, I can get to Yellowstone there.
Especially if we move the May meetings back, because then it's kind of 3 weeks. in
Correct.
between.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
it all
And then you've
helps.
got- You said July 28th?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know, I don't want to move that to the
That one's a
21st.
tentative budget.
No.
Yeah, that's got to,
That's gotta stay.
We're
gotta
good.
stay.
Okay.
I appreciate your all's flexibility in moving the June date. That's
I'd like-
appreciated.
I'd like to, oh, Miss,
Yeah, that makes
you
sense.
guys have to go. You have to go now. I have to wait. I hate
No, I
waiting.
don't.
I am the most important.
Listen,
No.
I'm, whenever we meet, I'm here, so just, but I don't really have any crazy meeting requests. You know, I like the 1 AM, 1 PM, but I'm not going to go there with it.
And you wanted
'cause I
the
know-
year-round meetings, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would like the
Oh, wait, that's a
the
school.
modified calendar version. That's right.
I'd like to make a suggestion to move to 9 o'clock, just like the county does.
For all of
I
them?
mean,
It's a little late, isn't it?
What's that?
No,
Whoa.
At least look at doing what the county does, where there's one at 9, one in the evening.
we did that.
I
love
don't, I
that.
don't disagree with that.
We did that.
I love that.
We did a whole year of that.
We did, but listen, not everyone works 9 to 5 jobs, and so some people work in the evenings and can't
Yeah,
come, and so
it
I
was
don't.
It was a request from the homeschoolers too. Like I had a homeschool meeting and they had said if you guys had meetings during the day, that we could come too and stuff like that. I said, we do have workshops.
You
Then
blame
we
a
have
lot of
conflict
things on
with
that, don't you?
employees
But
not
they
being
don't get a
able to
chance, but
come.
listen, they don't get a chance to speak. Individuals like that don't get a chance to speak in our workshops because they're not public speaking times. So having them go at least to 9 o'clock during the day, I think works. And that, I would like to make that suggestion. If you're good with it, you're good with it. Got a
I
majority.
don't know that I'm good with all of them that way, but I'm willing to meet
Get
you in the
halfway?
middle and do.
Well, I think, isn't that what you, I
I'd
thought
like
you were
to get all
talking
of
about
them.
the ones with,
I'd like to get all of them, but if I can't get that across.
I
we
think
go
that's going to
half.
be, well, because then you really don't give the opportunity for any of our employees to be able to come and speak
Okay.
if they're working during the day. So statutorily, we only have to have 1 meeting a month. Having 2 is more than what a lot of school boards do around the state. But I think if you have 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, then you're hitting everyone at that point, like with the opportunity to be able to come and speak, people that are working nighttime.
Are we keeping them on the same day, or are we?
yeah.
So we just do like the first
Well, that's like
meeting
6,
of the month, we would do at 9 AM. And then the second meeting would be at.
so in months
5:30.
that we have
That way
2
you-
meetings.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll put the pattern together, if
Okay.
you want, with like 1 morning meeting and 1 evening meeting.
That's it, with the morning meeting leading and then
And just see
the
what it
other one,
looks
because
like
over the
when we
summer
That's what
you,
we did.
Correct.
okay.
We did it 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did. I loved it.
I loved it too. I'd just like to go to 9 o'clock. I'll come here on Monday nights and they can.
So
talk
we'll
to
just
me.
make sure February 3rd, it will be a 9 AM meeting.
Thank you.
See?
Yeah.
Still chocolate cake.
Yeah, see, there you
Chocolate
go.
crepes.
That-
I
Just so
see
you
some
know, the
staff that's
staff.
happy back there right
Yeah,
now,
it was-
so.
they're part of the decision too.
And then obviously summertime meetings are going to be 9 AM.
Correct.
because Teachers have the ability to come. and-
Well, only one that you're having, because if
Yeah, it's
you're
only-
getting rid of all of them in June except the one, so.
So it's just me, the June.
And July 28th has to be in the
Has to be?
evening.
Oh.
Yeah, the budget meeting has to be.
So
done.
June would actually
that
be in
one.
the evening then?
No,
is-
June
why
would
would we do it
be
in
at
the
9
evening?
AM.
No, 9 a.m.
July
Summer meeting anyway.
28th will
Yeah,
be
Why does the
after,
tentative budget have to be in the evening?
it's statutory,
It's
you have to have it
statutory,
after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I can see, I see how we can do a pattern, so we'll have it ready for
Okay.
the
All right.
18th.
there we go.
All right, wonderful.
That sounds good. All right. Anything else, board? No? If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.